What's up, everybody? It's day 2, and I am back. But the question today is Texas back? This is for all you people that worship the ground that Matthew McConaughey walks on. You sprint to Walmart to get that burnt orange off the clearance rack, baby. You didn't get accepted to the school, but you're still throwing the hook 'em horns. You're not eating beef on Saturdays, and you're still pouring Coke in your baby bottles. But I got to get my blows in where I can. Come on, I'm an Aggie. However, stick around. You might like what I have to say. I came into the year listening to the Is Texas Back crap, and all I could think of was last year I watched them. I watched the games. I'm an Aggie, but I watched the Texas games. Last year I watched, and all I could think was Quinn Ewers is not as good as everybody is acting like he is. Now, he had the look. He had the perfect mullet, the chops, everything. He had the stars that go by his name. He was an Ohio State guy that decided to come back down here and play for Texas. Everything was right. Last year in the Alabama game, he comes out like gangbusters. He gets hurt. That was the excuse for the rest of the season. We didn't have anybody to come in and play. I'm thinking this year it's going to be more of the same. However, a little guy named Arch Manning gets picked up, and the entire world, prior to Coach Prime, decided that Arch Manning was going to be the savior of the University of Texas. The dude ranked second, I believe, behind Shedeur Sanders in NIL deals or value of NIL worth. Somewhere over $2 million in NIL valuation. However, that pissed off, whether he wants to admit it or not, that pissed off a guy named Quinn Ewers. The funny man is gone. We've got a clean-shaven, buzz-cut, lost a bunch of weight, looking fit dude who said, I had the stars by my name first, and by God, I'm the Texas quarterback. And I think he's come out and he's kind of proved it, which is scary for a lot of other schools in the nation. So, are we back is a maybe. And I say we as a native of Texas, but let's put it this way. I'm not going to steal any of your thunder. I'm an Aggie through and through. However, is Texas back is a maybe. And most of y'all know why it's a maybe, but I'm going to break it down a little bit because once again, I had a buddy who said, hey, do these videos. Let's talk about this one today. So here it is. I'm talking about it. The Alabama game, the first game against Rice was still left some iffy stuff. Now, we do know after last week, hey, Rice ain't that bad. They came out, they took U of H all the way down the wire, which predominantly U of H gets in those games and blows people out. But Rice took them all the way down the wire and then beat them. So Rice knows how to finish. Rice has it within them this year to play a little ball. And so the first game watching Texas, everybody's like, well, they're not really blowing Rice out of the water. Well, Rice's run game wasn't really that bad. And come to find out, Rice isn't horrible. So we moved to the Alabama game where a lot of even the big name announcers, the guys that are getting paid millions to talk in front of TVs, they thought Alabama was going to wipe the floor with Texas. However, Quinn Ewers, in his pissed off state of mind, came out and proved that he is the man. But even more importantly, all the talk about the physicality of the SEC, the size of the SEC, the speed of the SEC, it all got thrown out of the window. There was 0 parts of that game that Alabama dominated anybody from Texas. The offensive line for Texas dominated the defensive line of Alabama. And when the script was flipped, the defensive line of Texas dominated the offensive line of Alabama. The run game of Texas was better. The pass game of Texas was better. The quarterback play of Texas was way better. The receiving play of Texas was way better. I watched that game and thought, dadgummit, Texas is a pretty freaking good football team. Could they be back? 1,000%. Texas could be back. However, this is where it gets tricky. Every single time in the past, and when you've got Sam Ellinger standing on stage yelling, we're back, every single time it happens, what you run into is the trap games of the Big 12 schedule. Because you've got the high-flying offenses, the run and gun, the chunk it down the field and see what happens. And it always results each year in Texas screwing up and losing a game that they should win. And in the Big 12, you cannot do that because the other conferences, a couple in particular, Big 10 and SEC, have such a heavier weight carried with their name for playoff implications that if you want to make it and you are in the Big 12, you have to be perfect. Or you have to hope for a massive screw-up on the other side of the world somehow. This is where it gets tricky for Texas. Baylor, that is a horrible year for Baylor. Texas has no problem with Baylor. Kansas, you never know. They could absolutely suck, and somehow they'll play Texas close. Oklahoma is always going to be a tough match for Texas, although here recently Texas did blow them out of the water. However, Oklahoma's not as bad this year as they were last year. They've learned how to tackle over the year, which is something it's tough for me to say, but as an Aggie, we haven't figured out yet. And then you drop on down the list all the way down to Texas Tech. And I don't think TCU is a problem this year for UT. I do think Texas Tech plays that speed, run, and gun stuff, which I mean, you're about to watch Texas play Wyoming this week, who beat Texas Tech 2 weeks ago. I think you're going to see Texas destroy Wyoming. However, Texas Tech did come back and take Oregon all the way down to the wire. So there is a little bit of that in there that is scare for Texas. But if Texas can stay away from screwing up the trap games and somehow come out of the Big 12 unscathed, Texas will make the playoffs this year. An undefeated Big 12 team will make the playoffs this year. I've already thrown out my predictions. If you don't follow me on Twitter, you can go see those. I've got my predictions for Heisman, and I've got my predictions for playoff contenders this year, or the 4 teams that are going to make the playoffs this year. I've got it right now as Texas, USC, Florida State, and Georgia. And that's probably one of the craziest predictions out there. I made that prediction even before Herb Street put up his 5 that has 3 of mine, 4 in there already. Everybody's leaving Florida State out of it right now, and they're putting Michigan or Ohio State in there. I think what you're going to see is that Big 10 conference has Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State, and I think you're going to see those 3 cannibalize each other. That's why I'm saying Texas has to win outright. The Big 12 has to win outright. In the SEC, Georgia has the clearest path they've ever had. Alabama is not Alabama right now. Alabama will not win the SEC. Now, you could have, talent-wise, Alabama might not even be the best in the SEC West talent-wise. As biased as I'm sure people are going to think I am, A&M has just as good or better talent than Alabama does this year, as does LSU. Either one of those teams could beat Alabama, and an SEC team could make a run somehow on the west side, coming in as an 11-1 team, or possibly even a 10-2 type team, and then somehow mix it up with Georgia in the SEC championship and beat Georgia. In that case, you would not see an SEC team in the national championship because a 1-loss Big Ten team would take precedence over a 2-loss SEC team. And I don't think a 1-loss Big Ten champion would sit out over a 1-loss Georgia non-SEC champion. So there's kind of that path. USC is the fastest scoring football team I've ever seen in my life. And therefore, if somehow, that's a gauntlet. That is a gauntlet over there in the Pac-12 right now. I know they're busting up and everybody thinks the Pac-12 is going bye-bye, which it obviously is. But that is a gauntlet of a conference right now. But USC, now they've got Washington to get by. They got Oregon to get by. Oregon State's not bad. Washington State, where in the hell did they come from? But they just did something pretty cool last week. And then you've got the big story of Colorado. However, I do feel, I love Prime. I love what he's doing in Colorado. I love the way those guys are playing. I do think they're playing strictly off emotion right now. They do have good athletes, not as good as some of the other schools do. And they are in a situation right now where they've played 2 games. They've won both games, one close, one not so close. Nebraska's not a good team, so that got hyped, way overhyped. TCU is not the TCU of last year. And so that, great job, but that definitely got a little overhyped also. They're going to knock Colorado State out of the park, and then I think you're going to see the Colorado Buffs fall off a little bit after that. So I think USC handles them pretty confidently. But if USC can make it out unscathed in the Pac-12, USC is going to make it in. And then Florida State. Now, we've got the old of Florida State here at A&M now with Coach Jimbo Fisher, and we're seeing what they went through when they ended up having to get rid of him. We're in that time zone of ourselves right now, hoping somehow he can pull a rabbit out of his butt for $100 million and figure it out. However, Florida State, I've watched them, their first game against LSU, last week doesn't matter, but their first game against LSU, they were by far superior to LSU, not even close. A way better football team and an extremely scary football team, an FSU of the old. That looked like real Seminole football. They cakewalk the ACC and get themselves into the national championship playoffs, college football playoffs, I should say. So there's your path, Texas. Can you go unscathed? You've got all the talent in the world. You've got the best O-line in that side. You've got the best D-line in that side. Quinn Ewers is the best quarterback in the Big 12. Worthy and Whittington are phenomenal receivers. And then your running back core is always good at the University of Texas. Your shot is a clear path. If you can hold on and not fall for a trap game, you will be in the college football playoffs, and you have a shot, a legitimate shot, of powering your way through the first game and making it to the national championship. And if you do that, moving into the SEC next year, what we're seeing with NIL now, allowing some of these other schools to suck 5 stars away from the Alabamas and the Georgias of the world, if Texas plays in the national championship or just makes it to the college football playoffs for that matter, and moves into the SEC next year, you will see a massive influx of 5 stars. Mark my words, Texas will have the number one recruitment score in the nation next year if they make it to the playoffs this year, and Texas will be back. That will be one of the scariest football teams in the future of college football if they can go unscathed in conference play and make it to the college football playoffs. See y'all tomorrow. Peace.